In the program Current Affairs, now we bring you a discussion on dignity and security of women. The participants are Professor Subroto Mukherjee, former faculty, Delhi University, Gauri Karuna Mohanty, Advocate Supreme Court, and Aditi Tandon, the Telegraph, who initiates and moderates the discussion.
We meet today in the wake of two extremely terrible events. The first involving the brutal gang rape of a 20-year-old tribal girl in Birbhum area of West Bengal, and this happened at the behest of a village council which did not approve of a certain kind of inappropriate behavior which this particular girl was showing, because apparently she was in love with some boy from outside the community. The second case involves a young IT professional, all of 23 years of age, who called Esther Anuya, who was found murdered and her body was set ablaze, and she was recovered from the side of a national highway in Mumbai after several days. So these two cases again symbolize the continued absence of dignity and respect that our society is showing to the women of the country. Naturally, the law machinery has also been found to be wanting, because the police, the law, the order, the recent legislation which was passed around the sexual assault law, everything seems to have failed the women, because this sense of insecurity continues to surface every now and again. And we also must look at the fact that these two cases are complete contrasts. If you look at the social strata from where these women came, one comes from a tribal background totally. The other comes from a well-educated urban background, an IT professional who left her home in Hyderabad and was trying to pursue her dreams in another city, in Mumbai. Both faced sexual assault, one at the hands of the kangaroo court, the other at the hands of the goons. Just because they were women, both suffered on account of their being women. So this whole question of being a woman and being unsafe in India continues to linger. We've had laws, we've had endless debates in the wake of December 16 gang rape, which shocked the entire country. But the shock continues. The shock waves have returned again with this West Bengal case. So Professor Mukherjee, where as a society do we seem to falter? What is going wrong with us?
Something has terribly gone wrong, especially in a situation. If you look to two important indices, that Mahatma Gandhi's movement had any number of women leaders, and he brought them to the very fore of public life, and many of them excelled. Second important point, if you read Gunnar Middle, you'll find that he is making a point that even compared to the many advanced nations, the middle class women have done wonderfully well in life, and the number of women you find in important positions in India, that is not replicated anywhere else. Now the question comes that why these things are recurring, and in a much more systematic manner than what it used to be. But one perception is that probably in earlier times cases were not reported, media sensitivity was not there, and also the reach of the electronic system has extended to virtually every corner of India. But even then it's not justifiable. I think the most important reason that the people still perpetuate in such heinous crimes is because there is a feeling that law will not touch us. We'll go scot-free. And two reasons for that. One is the long legal process that even the fast-track courts and all have not been able to really change. Second, the important point is the legal loopholes are such that there will always be an escape route that we can find out. So we'll have to think very seriously and comprehensively at the societal level, at the legal apparatus level, and also in the context of providing basic security of life and property. As you remember, that is the most important function of a civilized state that should be extended to every single woman, because as you pointed out, in the recent cases, nobody is spared. The well-educated rich or the middle class or even a tribal is not spared, and that I think we have to see in a very important manner, that how we can really come out of this situation and create a civilized society. Because you remember what Vivekananda said, that the status of women is the surest indicator of the level of civilization of a nation.
Gauriji, coming back to the December 16 gang rape of a girl in Delhi, which kind of brought the whole issue back from the cold. and there was so much of raging debate, and we all know that the Criminal Amendment Bill was after that amended very suitably to provide for stringent punishments. There were sections put in that any police officer who doesn't register an FIR will face arrest, will face imprisonment. There were even sections put in that any hospital, whether it is a private hospital or a government hospital, if it refuses immediate treatment to the victim of sexual assault, is liable for punishment as well as fine under the law. Nothing seems to actually translate into reality when we talk of the ground situation. Let me recount the cases at hand, for instance. Recently, a 16-year-old girl was gang raped, again in West Bengal, and we all know that she was gang raped twice before being set ablaze by her perpetrators. And the police was found wanting. And again in the case of the Mumbai girl whose body was recovered from the highway, the father has been running from pillar to post. The police kept shunting him between Hyderabad and between Mumbai, first saying that there is no proof that your daughter actually arrived in. This woman was travelling from Hyderabad to Mumbai in a train, and the last people saw her was on the train station in Mumbai hiring an auto rickshaw. That was the last that was heard of her. Nothing happened. It was the father himself who discovered the body along the highway. He took relatives, friends. What is the legal system doing, and where do you think we really need to pull up our socks?
Primarily, all the instances that you say, yes, like Professor just pointed out, that there is one mentality or mindset of all these abusers of law that yes, because of the long drawn process, you might eventually get scot-free. Like the instance of Mumbai that you're putting right in hand, there comes in a jurisdiction problem. If the police send them back to Hyderabad, back and forth, it's primarily because this jurisdiction aspect does come into account as to where was this girl, was she actually in Mumbai or not, and then you cannot really expect policing to be there everywhere. There has to be witnesses, there has to be evidences, there has to be certain basis on which either an investigation can proceed and then subsequently bring the offenders to book. And in the absence of such things, we really cannot always blame the system or blame the judiciary. Yes, there is a lot of need or want for speedy action, speedy justice. There is a certain need for it. But at the same time, we cannot always be blaming either the police or the judicial system. There is an inherent lack of sensitivity among individuals, among the perpetrators of this law, and they seem to abuse the law. A mindset of these people needs to be changed. Society as a whole also needs to act. It's not that there can be policing everywhere all the time at all places. It has to be a kind of education given to these kind of people where they are violating women, abusing women, in whichever form. It doesn't have to be the aggravated form of rape and murder. It could be also the small instances of violating or outraging their modesty. It happens everywhere all the time. So there cannot be a system to always check them at all places. There has to be a kind of an education, even at homes, the way we bring up children, the way we bring up male children especially. There has to be a kind of an educational system. The society as a whole has to act to bring all them to book.
Professor, you heard Gauri, and she in some way did stand in defense of the judiciary and the police. But the point really is that whereas the whole social reformation that we are talking about, the fact that there is a clear preference for sons in our society, the fact that it all begins at home, you don't treat your daughters equally with your sons, all those points are very well taken, and the fact that the curriculum of the schools also needs to be very gender sensitive. But the two very important pillars of society, especially insofar as women and crimes against women are concerned, happen to be the judiciary, happen to be the police system. The case that I cited was a case at hand. I mean, you can't keep citing issues of jurisdiction to deny a father who's saying that my daughter has been missing for 20 days. You could have obtained her call records. You could have seen her last place of location.
I'm not defending. What I'm trying to say is, if at certain instances the immediate action is not taken, then if there is a jurisdictional issue, that could be one of the aspects. But once it is identified, the body is found at a particular place, certainly that police of that particular area would take in the investigation.
Coming back to the same issue of police attitudes, it's more about attitudes and response to issues than really about jurisdictional problems, because police always trying to find excuses to sort of delay investigations. FIRs have started to be registered only after the anti-sexual assault bill was made stronger. So, Professor Mukherjee, what do you have to say on the overall response of the legal system and the police machinery?
You see, if you defend the police and the judiciary, he is defending the indefensible. Right from the Prime Minister to the President has raised concern about an unreformed police force, 1861 Police Act, and the Prime Minister really assured the nation that something would be done about it. Now this argument that police cannot be everywhere, I think is a lame excuse. As I said earlier, the first duty of the state is the protection of life and property of every single individual. And now we find that the violation is more gender-based, women are suffering much more. So it is just not a question of sensitivity, but it is also the effectiveness of law implementation body. Well, there is a public-private divide in any kind of a liberal society. And if you really look to the hankering for a son, it's just not limited to India, probably it's throughout the world. But that does not mean that you kill your daughters or burn them. So you have to create an equalitarian understanding of society, and whatever may be your private preferences, that should be at your private level, not at a public space. For instance, this Khap Panchayat, the tribal girl episode, violates the very principle of liberal democracy and modernity, is the choice. Modern society is based on choice. And there is a certain amount of contractualism in it, that if I happen to like somebody, or we like to do something, I have the right to do it. And now if you really look to the Supreme Court, has really agreed with this kind of a proposition, when they have legalized, in a way, living together. So if you are legalizing living together, it's the duty of the state to provide for the mechanism of the safety of every single individual, married, unmarried, or whatever it may be, and whatever may be their economic and social conditions. So here I'd like to point out, the first important thing, we should not go for the change of attitude, because in the modern societies, the pace of change has become so quick, and modernization process is advancing at a quicker pace, that history has been condensed. In that kind of an argument of spacing and be lenient to social attitude, I think will be suicidal. So it is the concerted effort, not only of the state, the NGOs, and all of the concerned citizens, the political parties, the organizations, to assure that every single individual has the right to live in a way they think proper. What one does in his private sphere, whether it is food-wise or marriage-wise or any-wise, it's none else's concern. And that we have to imbibe. Mind you that India is a liberal democracy, and there is a process of accommodation, there is a process of change, and we have been able to achieve quite a bit. But now, these kinds of blemishes is to be done away with the authority and force of the state. So I do not believe that the changing of the mindset, you wait for 100 years to have a civilized society, is not the call of the hour. Call of the hour is a reformed state, an effective state, where every woman who wants to lead his life in a particular manner is safe and sound.
Coming back to the issue of Khap Panchayats, because the case in West Bengal actually brings back memories of the Khap Panchayats and what they had been doing in western Uttar Pradesh and Haryana. About 2-3 years ago, the spate of cases that we saw in Haryana and western Uttar Pradesh, where a lot of killings were ordered by these Khap Panchayats. I would like Gauri to reflect on that issue, that there were attempts when there was a spate of murders ordered by the Khap Panchayats to enforce what they perceived was right behavior or wrong behavior on the part of the girl or the boy. There was a move on the part of the government of India to actually amend the Indian Penal Code and bring in a law to separately address the issue of honor crimes in the country. But again, the political will was found lacking. A lot of states, a lot of governments, because these are potential vote banks in states, all of us know that there are compulsions of politics. The Supreme Court, however, has very strongly condemned Khap Panchayats. I still remember a judgment by Markande Kadju, the retired judge, who'd said that these people need to be hanged. These were the words he used. So what is your take on that, the panchayats and the fact that they're not sanctioned?
panchayat, be the kangaroo courts, be these khamp panchayat, they are all illegal establishments, and this is again the male mindset which I'm trying to say is undermine women, abuse women and keep them suppressed. They believe the norms that they lay down is right, and therefore everybody has to abide by it, and the Supreme Court has very rightly condemned such kind of attitude. And these are not legalized systems. In our country we have a legal setup, a judicial mechanism which really runs according to sanctioned norms. Neither the Khat Panchayats nor these kangaroo courts are sanctioned legal systems, so any action taken by them is clearly illegal and without any base. They do it because they feel that is right, and they have set up their own kind of a system which has to be condemned, which is gross, absolutely illegal, and needs to be condemned by every section of society. And the actions taken by these courts, like you said, needs to be certain kinds of amendments or bills passed, and strong actions has to be taken against people who take law into their own hands. Just because merely being a panchayat or a village head or whatever does not give you any right absolutely to take any action against whosoever it may be. And even if they have violated their customs or the traditional norms or whatever laid down by that particular caste system, there are legal recourses, remedies that they can take to. They can't just take law into their own hands and decide as to what to do to them and what kind of punishment that should be meted out to them.
Professor Mukherjee, I want to bring in the recent tendency of certain new political outfits to actually deliver justice through community system. What they call is direct democracy. These kangaroo courts, community panchayats, caste panchayats, these are also forms of direct democracy. I mean, if you talk to the villagers, they'll tell you that this is the direct system of democracy and justice that we practice in our villages, and they actually don't go to the police. And all these caste panchayats actually flourish under the active patronage of police officers as well as the state establishment. I want you to reflect on the fact that we now have a new social order, political order emerging, where we recently had a dharna in the capital city, actually on an issue of crime against women. There were some African women, and the law minister of Delhi ordered that a raid should be conducted. That didn't happen because the police actually stood its ground and said that's illegal. And this chief minister of Delhi then staged a dharna in the heart of the capital, and he talked of participative democracy. He talked of delivering justice on the streets. This whole tendency of delivering justice, solving problems, having debates on the street with the people, how effective and how relevant is it to our times?
Most important thing to see in this is the Chief Minister violates the law and then demands justice. So itself is very contradictory. The point is that democracy is individual based, it's not community based. It's one man, one vote. That is the basis of the thing. If you really look to the Khap Panchayat argument and your direct democracy argument, both are faulty. I just give you one example of the British days. Sati was banned, and within a few years, there were no cases of Sati anywhere. Second example is Thagi, where millions of people died at that time, but once the Britishers decided to act, they acted. It's the indecisiveness of the state, what Middle called the soft state, the inactivity, the selectivity. Now, if you really want to take up a particular case, which is a lot of exhibitionism, then that is taken up very quickly. But others are allowed to rot. And that is because, you see, the Indian democracy is a very imperfect democracy. So it is not direct or half panchayat reform. It is to make the democracy, which is representative, and there is no other alternative to it, to be effective. And there, I think the most important reasoning that should really come is first the questioning that in a way the direct democracy fellows are doing, that why is the state so ineffective for the last 60 years of not tackling these basic problems of roti kapda mukan and security. So there is a debate that is going on, but their solution is not absolutely acceptable. It is inhuman and pre-modern. What is to be done is to create a structure of effectiveness of the judicial system. The police must be reformed to the maximum extent. I am not saying that they should become bobbies of London, but in a way, people must have certain amount of confidence in the police. For instance, in Bengal, there is a saying that if the child does not drink milk, he will be taken to the police station. So that alienation, that attitude must change. Both the profession of the legal system and the police people fear. They have no faith either in a lawyer or in a police system. And that must change. We must follow from Germany the system of how this alienation can be changed. There should be regular fees and FIR, which is remaining still very problematic in most of the cases, and that is to be effectively done. And now I like to say the ray of hope lies in technology. Technology changes society, and with the spread of education and the spread of the technological basis, I think they can be effectively done.
Gauri, coming to the whole issue of womanhood, if we look at the underlying causes of the crimes against women, what is really triggering these crimes? What is happening? As Professor Mukherjee pointed out, that the society is changing extremely quickly. The pace of change is mind-boggling. Women are asserting themselves. Women are making choices, not just in respect of their personal life, in respect of property, in respect of jobs. A certain study that was commissioned by the National Commission for Women around this spate of honor crimes that were ordered by the Khap Panchayats of Haryana recently, when we had that very infamous case of Manoj and Babli, both were killed. And they were even sentenced to life, by the way. But many of them are now out on bail. That's a separate case. But the point that I was making is, the conclusion of this particular study was, a lot of these murders were actually being ordered so much because of honor, as much because of the intercaste marriages. The issue of property was very vital, and a lot of perpetrators actually belonged to the girls' families. And they did not want the property of the family to be, they didn't want that the whole thing should go out of the family. So to assert themselves, how do you look at it like a lawyer? Have you seen such cases, and have you seen connections between the financial empowerment of women and the rising crimes against them?
Certainly, not only the financial powers of women, but also the fact that they are asserting themselves, it somewhere down the line threatens. Because all said and done, it is a patriarchal, male-dominated society. Somewhere down the line, the male of this section, they do feel threatened and they want to reassert themselves. And the only way they think that they can reassert themselves is by physical power, which obviously that is one aspect where women cannot fight back. Intellectually, otherwise, they certainly are quite capable of fighting back. But I would like also to take back to the fact that the previous instance that you just discussed about of direct democracy, here the registration of FIR was not the issue. Here the police officer refused to act merely because it was not sanctioned under the law. So here again we cannot fault with either the system or the judiciary or the police once again for not acting. And wherever, be it these instances of Haryana, the Khap Panchayats, or in these cases where there is an inaction, it is primarily because there is no information, because police cannot at random or at tandem act anywhere or raid some place or arrest somebody at midnight or whatever. There is a certain procedure. We are a legal system, we are a civilized society, and there is a certain procedure that we need to follow. If there is a violation, there has to be a complaint and that the action takes place. There is one aspect I would certainly agree that yes, there is delay. At certain cases, FIR is not being registered. But even in cases where an FIR is not being registered, there is an procedure where you can go to magistrate court and file a complaint case. It is not everywhere that people sit back and say, oh, FIR is not being registered, we will not take an action. That is not the case. In case the police refuses to register an FIR, that is also an offence. You can put that particular officer under scrutiny. He can get penalized for not doing so. And you can always go to a magistrate court, file a complaint case and get your matter done. So for every illegal action, there is a proper remedy, proper recourse to adopt to. Everything cannot be taken into your own hands by naming democracy.
This argument of executive, the magisterial inquiry that you are saying, holds good for all kinds of crimes. But when we talk of crimes against women, we cannot discount the fact that a rape and sexual assault is a particular kind of crime where time is of essence. My question is to Professor Mukherjee now. Time is of essence in a case of rape because medical evidence is the key to the conviction of the accused, and therefore the registration of FIRs becomes important, and that is why the lawmakers also rose to the occasion and ensured that registration. Your point is well taken that there is an alternative route.
If it is a very, very serious and heinous crime, then the immediate action would be taken on the basis of a complaint. It becomes automatically an FIR. Even an oral complaint or whatever immediately becomes an FIR. There you don't have to wait for a particular thing.
We are talking of technicalities now. Let's get to the broader question. The issue that I wanted to get addressed also was, Professor Mukherjee, that the issue of financial empowerment of women, the issue of their assertion, the issue of their education, the society is changing, women are asserting themselves and becoming more and more vulnerable. Is this a transitional phase? Will it pass, or do you think it's here to stay?
Well, if you really ask me, it should have been over by now. 60 years is a long time. In the life of a nation, especially in the modern times, things change very quickly. My basic disagreement with the sympathetic attitude towards the police, that they are overworked or they don't have the information, those are not facts. They have all the information because police is inactive because of certain amount of fear of the people, and also the legal system is such and the entire governmental machinery is such that there is very little accountability. It is true not only of the police force, but the entire setup in India. Now, that is to be reformed. But the immediate thing is that, as I said, FIR is not easy. And in your kind of a context, immediacy is the most important problem. There, I think, severe action must be taken against the police force at the level where they come directly in contact with the ordinary people, that these things they ought to do. I will insist on this, that even today, FIR is looked to as a privilege, and if you go and speak English, normally it will be entertained, but an ordinary man will find it very difficult to get it. So most important act is to modernize the police, sensitize the police, and reform the entire machinery so that for the ordinary man, police will look accountable, which is not there in today's India.
Gauri, now about this anti-sexual assault law that was amended last year, and the fact that the law is extremely progressive. It gives women a lot of powers. For the first time, it introduces in the statute book something called the harm to bodily integrity of the women. The whole outdated notion of outraging the modesty of women, that section has gone and a new section has come in, where you are actually recognizing crimes like stalking, voyeurism. You're actually going ahead as far as lawmaking is concerned, but our point repeatedly is that the law enforcement remains weak, and the police and judiciary being important pillars of law enforcement. Judiciary, of course, is doing its job. We all know that in this West Bengal kangaroo court case, the Supreme Court has today issued a notice to the state of West Bengal. Again, in the case of this Mumbai, the local high court has issued notices. Courts are doing what they can, but importantly, the police are a very important tool. You as a lawyer, what do you think can be done to sensitize them?
Gender sensitivity is one issue that needs to be actually drilled into everyone, including the police force. I mean, it has to go straight, right from the school level till everywhere. Gender sensitization is very important, and yes, the police is an important agency because they are the ones that investigate into a matter and bring that. Unless there are certain documents, certain evidences in record before the court cannot act without anything on record. So the police force is an important instrument in giving justice or helping in the justice system of a country. So therefore, merely police bashing is not the answer. Accountability, yes. And there has to be certain way we as individuals, again I repeat, have to also be participative in getting justice for women. Because you cannot leave everything to one section and say, okay, it is their job. They do have a job, but at the same time, we have to assist and come forth. If we know, yes, at X place so-and-so is hiding, at Y place such and such document or such and such evidence, just like you said, doctors are also required to give in their bit of assistance when it comes to medical examination, ABC. If at a particular place there is a crime that has taken place, the CCTV footage, the other documentary or physical or even other articles, objects, everybody come together, give an assistance, and after that they put in their charge sheet and documents and file in there.
Of course, it's nice that we agree to disagree on certain issues, but police bashing was not the intent. The intent was really to question issues of accountability of the system, which is very important, and we must keep asking these questions. Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on dignity and security of women. The participants were Professor Shubroto Mukherjee, former faculty, Delhi University, Gauri Karuna Mohanty, Advocate Supreme Court, and Aditi Tandon, the Telegraph, who initiated and moderated the discussion. It came to you in the program Current Affairs, produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.